Hey guys, Dr. Lee Thomas here. I am joined by my lovely and amazing wife, Tristan, who a lot of you guys
Hi.
know. Quick background just on what we're going to be talking about through today. If you've been struggling for a long time with, getting your diet right, with weight loss resistance, with high blood pressure, cardiovascular problems, diabetes, what we're going to go over today is the different nutritional protocols that we have available in our office that we teach to our patients, that we teach on my radio program, really to help you not just go on a diet for 3-4 weeks, but to really build long lasting health. So we're going to talk about the key differences between our core diet, which we recommend for everyone. Doesn't matter who you are, at a bare minimum you should be eating a core plan. And then we're also going to go into our advanced plan. And so by the end of this, you're going to know the ins and outs, how to do it, how to properly do a ketogenic diet. I know that term's been thrown around,
A lot.
yeah, a lot. And
Mhm.
so we want to try to clear up some misnomers with it. Some of my patients come in and say, "Oh, it's the best thing in the world," and some say it's awful. And usually, if we can, educate people properly, take you through the right program with it, we can see really amazing results, great changes in as little as 4, 8, 12 weeks
Yeah,
through this. And
absolutely.
the best part is, I think most people can make it a lifestyle afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, my journey with the advanced keto plan started almost like 2 years ago. Now, it was after the birth of our second baby.
Hmm.
I had put on over, 25 pounds. And I just wasn't happy with how I felt. And on top of that, I've been dealing with chronic fatigue and a lot of just mental blocks. So I started researching the advanced keto plan and I decided that I to draw a line in the sand, started it, and I haven't looked back. And in that time, I've lost all of the weight that I've put on with the two pregnancies and a little bit more. Um, and I feel rejuvenated. I feel vitalized, like revitalized. So it's a great plan. It's a great lifestyle, and it's something that I've been very blessed to work with patients on. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. And the background on that is, when we started our practice, it was just my wife and I for 7 years, and we had all these ambitions of being able to kind of coach people and do nutrition with people, and really kind of the best that we got to was doing a lot of in-depth, like, one-on-one workshops or group workshops, having resources available, but we never really had the capacity to do one-on-one coaching, which is what we've always wanted to do. So luckily, in the past year and a half, my wife has gotten to step back from being a director role in the office and really be able to focus on growing our health coaching program. So for our patients that want it, for our friends who want it, for a lot of people who have asked us, God, this is hard to do on my own. I'm struggling. Is there someone I can sit down with? Is there someone who can like map this out for me? That's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Is how we can actually help you guys map that out and really see good sustainable success like you have, and like
Yeah.
so many of our patients had in our office. Just
Yeah.
that next level of doing it.
Mhm.
So let's start by talking about we all know what the core diet is, and I'll give a brief overview on that. The core plan is really just a great way to eat that's focusing on individuals and families. It's just building awareness around quality of food, right? And that's everything we talk about, is that food has to be high quality, focusing more on whole foods, those god foods, over processed foods, clean fats, clean protein sources. Even if you're eating carbohydrates, which are allowed in the core plan, making sure they're coming from clean sources. What I want you to talk about is, how is the advanced plan different, especially the advanced ketogenic plan, from a core plan?
Well, the advanced keto plan is a plan that we recommend to our patients with chronic health issues. So, patients that come in that are dealing with diabetes or obesity, heart disease, cancer, or just patients that need a jump start to achieving their health goals. Um, how the advanced keto plan differentiates from the core plan is that it adds on this entire new layer. It has more restrictions on
Hmm.
certain carbohydrates, but it focuses on a lot on getting the right macro profile, so that your body can enter into a state of ketosis.
Yeah. So by macros, you mean macronutrients. So
Yes,
like your
macronutrients.
carbohydrates, fat, and proteins.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you go a little bit more into those? So there's a couple rules on the ketogenic diet that's different from the core plan diet.
Hmm.
So one, you said less sugars.
Less sugars. So the keto diet has very little um, carbohydrates.
Okay.
It focuses on high fats and moderate to like an adequate amount of protein.
Okay.
So that's the keto plan.
Okay. So how is that different from, like, let's just say, eating low carbohydrate, or from eating like Atkins diet that was around, huge phase in the 80s and 90s. My dad ate
Mhm.
Atkins. It was,
Yeah.
he went to the bar every night or a lot of nights. But no, but I mean, I was there, and it was, we did bowling, we did golfing and all these things together, but it was, Atkins was, just chicken wings.
Mhm.
And I look at the macronutrient and I'm like, well, that's all protein and,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of fat, but he goes, but there's no carbs, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? But I never saw him sustain his healthy weight with that.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between advanced ketogenic and Atkins, or just eating low carb?
Well, the biggest issue with restricting calories and eating low carbs is that you are negatively impacting your metabolism because you're lowering your metabolic rate. Whereas with the keto diet, it's actually causing a complete metabolic shift. So you're shifting your body from using glucose as its primary source of fuel
Okay,
to
so
now
using those
use
carbs,
mhm,
you switch from using carbs to
to using stored fats
okay,
and ketone bodies for energy.
okay, beautiful, beautiful.
Mhm.
So, do you want to go any more on that? I was going to explain a little bit.
You can explain a little
I love this stuff.
bit.
Yes, I mean that's the thing is, when we're growing up, I mean, as a kid especially, like you can digest anything, you know, Legos, bits of rocks, wood chips, carbohydrates, fat. It doesn't matter what it is. You can. I've seen my kid eat those things, and I swear get energy out of it. As we get older, whatever we consume more of, we tend to become a primary burner of that. And what a lot of people are relying on, day in day out, is the carbohydrate meals. You look
Yeah.
at a quote unquote healthy diet that's a breakfast that has whole grain bread, orange juice,
Cereals.
maybe a cereal, and some yogurt that's low fat. And you look at that and go, well, that yeah, I guess the orange juice is okay. It's whole grain bread, so that's better. But you look at it and wow, it's
Full of
200 grams of
carbohydrates.
carbohydrates in the morning. And so you're spiking your blood sugar through the roof. And then, when you keep doing that, your blood sugar keeps bottoming out. You need more and more carbohydrates, which leads to insulin problems, which eventually leads to diabetes, which,
Yeah.
1 out of 3 Americans are either pre-diabetic and or diabetic in America, which is crazy. We're seeing an epidemic of obesity and all the health problems that
Mhm.
go along with it.
Mhm.
So let's talk about ketosis just, for a minute, to get a little bit sciencey here. What does it actually do inside of your body? What is getting into a ketogenic state, as we would call it, getting your body into that ketogenic state? What does it do?
Well, I like pictures. So I think and I see in pictures. So I like using the analogy of the car.
Okay.
So what you're doing, so with a diet that is restrictive on calories or is low carb, it's like running your car on low fuel for a long time. And that's why a
Yep.
lot of times when you're following these diets, you feel cranky, you feel run down.
Yep.
But with the keto diet, what you're doing is you're emptying out your tank. So you're restricting carbohydrates to a level where your body can no longer rely on glucose as its primary source of fuel. So now what it does is your body produces this hormone called glucagon that interacts with stored fats, breaks up the stored fats to create these ketone bodies to fuel your body. So you're making that transition.
Got it. So your body's essentially now becoming a fat burner, like it's
Yes.
burning its own fat for
Yes.
fuel and energy.
Yes. Your
Okay.
body can't do both. So the standard American diet, which is high in carbohydrates, you're predominantly burning sugar. So all of the fats that you're also ingesting just becomes stored fat. So
Beautiful. So why is it? I mean, I think I know why, but why is it so beneficial? And when I'm asking her on this, I really am like she's read, not to brag for you, but more than 20 books on it, taken tons of courses, health coaching courses on it to become really, what I would call in terms an expert on this subject. So whenever you're talking about that, why is it so important that your body does burn and metabolize fat for fuel?
well, fat's just a much better efficient
Mm-hmm.
and sustainable source of fuel. Um, all of your cells, they're surrounded by a layer of fat.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are ingesting or you're eating healthy fats, it helps with cellular health and repair as well.
Okay. So it helps your cells repair better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know it helps your insulin
Mm-hmm.
sensitivity. So like if you have diabetes, for
Absolutely.
example, it's going to help reset your body's insulin sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who's insulin sensitive is pre-diabetic, or if
Mm-hmm.
you're really, if your body doesn't respond to insulin at all, then you're full blown diabetic. So I know
Yes.
that it helps to reset that as well.
Yes.
what are some other things it does inside of the
A
body?
high-fat diet's also very healing to the brain. Sugar can cause a lot of inflammation and atrophy of the brain. So when you are allowing your body to use ketones as the predominant source of fuel, you'll experience a lot of cognitive improvement as well.
Beautiful. So like mental clarity, and I
Yes.
know you talk about that all the time.
Yes.
And when I'm in a ketogenic state, I think that's awesome.
Mhm.
You want to talk about what to eat and not to eat, and kind of like qualities? Because I know we've talked to people on ketogenic diet all the time, and they come in saying, "I've done keto before, and I ate
Mhm.
bacon and
Eggs and
and
cheese.
cheese." Yeah,
And they'll go to McDonald's or Wendy's and get like the bunless burgers. And the problem with that is, although they can get their body into a state of ketosis, eating unhealthy rancid fats can cause a lot of inflammation in the body. So although they may lose some weight, they're doing it at the expense of their health.
right, right. And
Mhm.
any nutritional program or protocol you do,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to at the same time be answering the question, is this making me healthier?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
if your only goal is to change a scale and lose a couple pounds or try to look at it in a bikini, if that's your goal, well, and you sacrifice your health, well, then you're no better in the long run. You're worse.
Mhm.
And I agree. We see that all the
Mhm.
time. Yeah. Okay. So do you want to talk like macronutrient ranges, target ranges, things like that? Or that's for me. I'll talk about that. That's why she's looking at me. So quality foods is a hugely important thing. Again, there's a right way to do ketogenic diet and a wrong way to do a ketogenic diet. And, we call the differences between those clean keto and dirty keto. And dirty keto is a really bad, unhealthy way of doing it. So one of the things you have to focus on is the quality of your foods. One of the most important things, because we're talking about eating a diet that's honestly really high in fat. I think a lot of people don't really understand what healthy fat is. In fact, for a lot of people, you might hear healthy fat and you're like, wait, I thought it was all bad. You know what I mean? But there are big differences between healthy fats and bad fats. So if our diet, and we're going to talk about macronutrient makeup in a minute, but if your diet is a large majority fat, it's got to be from a high quality source. So if we're talking about high quality fats, the really easy way to think about it is if it came out of the ground, if it's clean, it's going to be healthy for you. If it was processed in a lab, whenever you look at the back of an ingredient label and you can see ingredients that you can't pronounce, hydrolyzed, partially hydrogenated, those are typically your bad fats. Another bad fat to look out for would be a canola fat, which, a lot of people say, well, canola is a plant. It's a rapeseed, but that was genetically modified. And so the thing you want to look for if you're going to go with quality foods for starters is fat's got to be healthy fat. If that's, we're talking animal sources, it has to come from a clean source. So if it's a cow, for example, it must be grass fed. If it's chickens, they must be free range. If it's eggs, for example, they've got to be pastured eggs, free roaming, no cages at all, able to eat grubs and worms and things like that. And there's a
Fish is also another great
oh, totally.
source.
Yeah. Fish,
Yes.
like wild
Wild
caught,
caught. Mhm.
not farm raised, because farm raised fish eat corn. And I've never seen a fish in the wild munching on a corn on the cob. I've never seen it. So that's like quality of foods there, especially also with grains. If you're having a small amount, not of grains, excuse me, of carbohydrates, and even if you're having a small amount of carbohydrates, you want those to be nutritious carbohydrates, like ones from vegetables, especially cruciferous vegetables. The ones are really high in fiber, low in carbohydrates. Really, there's not a
There's not a long list of carbohydrates that you should be consuming on the keto plan.
right.
Especially
Right.
if you want, if
It's
you're
like you shouldn't
doing,
have a half a donut and then eat nothing else the rest of the day. Like they should come from your good vegetables.
they should come from your good, like whole complex carbohydrates. So your leafy greens, like you said, your broccoli, cauliflower, your low
Absolutely.
glycemic berries.
Yeah,
Those are
absolutely.
definitely
Yeah.
things that you should stick to.
Yeah, I mean cruciferous vegetables. So they've done research on these. So if you have 5 servings of cruciferous vegetables a week, it lowers your overall cancer risk by 60%. So it's like you don't want to just try to fit, into what are called macronutrients. Well, I got my 50 carbs, I got my 100 grams of protein, I got my fats. You've got to look at the overarching quality. And that's, I think, one of the biggest differences that we teach patients is without that quality being there, you might lose a little bit of weight, But then there's all these pitfalls that come with the ketogenic diet that patients complain about. And oftentimes what we see is they were doing the wrong type of ketogenic diet. They weren't focusing on that quality. They're feeling sick 2 weeks in. As soon as they start losing weight, they get migraines and headaches. We know that their electrolytes are imbalanced. We know that they're probably adding more toxins into their body than less, which we'll talk about in a minute when you start burning fat, that you want to make sure that you're detoxing or aware of any type of deficiencies in your body so you can handle that appropriately. But I think it's a big thing to cover.
Yeah, but I mean, it's difficult for any first timers trying to follow a ketogenic plan. There's so many things to take into account, like what should I eat? What should I avoid? The quality of the sources of food that I'm eating.
Right.
How do I get the right macro target? How do I understand or address any micronutrient deficiencies? Because that happens a lot of times when someone transitions into ketosis. So it's hard. And that's why I think coaching is so important, because that's where I come in and I help patients kind of charter like uncharted territory.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so hard for the first time. I totally agree with that. Let's talk about the target macronutrient ranges. So anytime we say macronutrients, what we mean is the makeup of your carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. What percentage of your total food intake are those food types? And so, if you're eating a core diet, a lot of that's a pretty balanced ratio. You're getting, 40, 50% fat, 20 to 30% protein, another 20 to 30% from carbohydrates. If you're doing a ketogenic diet, it really flips those numbers around a lot. Very high emphasis on fat. So we're talking, around a 70% dietary intake is actually coming from fat, about 25% from protein, and really about only 5% from carbohydrates, because we want your body to start fueling on its own fat for energy. So those are the target ranges that we talk about when it's a ketogenic diet as a starting point. A lot of people will come out and just say, "Oh, I'm ketogenic and I'm eating under 100 carbs a day, or I'm under 50 carbohydrates a day." And that's not really necessarily a ketogenic diet. Your body might get into ketosis for a little bit of time, but there's a lot of problems if you're not eating enough fat. If you're having too much protein, you can put a lot of stress on your kidneys. Without all the healthy fats, your body may not make a substantial amount of ketone bodies. Any other issues when I get into those macros?
And I mean, and that's why it's so important to track your macros. And with how popular macros are, the ketogenic diet, there are so many apps out there that you can use to help make tracking macros easy. For example, I love using Carb Manager with the patients I work with. There's also MyFitnessPal. I know that there are a plethora of apps out there, and a lot of them are free. So download it and just really track and be aware and very mindful of your macros.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of difficult at first because we both went through it, tracking it all. But once you, I mean, but here's the thing:
we weighed everything out. We had a nice scale. Everything was weighed out. Everything was tracked. But to be honest, it takes a few weeks of doing that consistently, and then you get the hang of it.
Right. It's like riding a bicycle. It's hard at first, then all of a sudden you're like, why doesn't everyone know this stuff? And the better you get at it, the more easy it is for you. Again, so this is not, fishing for yourself. This is us, helping teach you how to fish. You know what I mean? Or sorry, it's not you just getting fish. It's you learning how to fish so you can take care of yourself. You know what I mean? Now you're starting to understand what you're actually putting into your body. And that's a really important thing. Also, whenever you're eating a ketogenic diet, there's ways to do it on a budget, but a lot of times the quality foods are a little bit more. There was a really interesting study that as late as 1900, we spent almost a quarter of our income on food. And now if you look at it, you know what I mean? We've kind of switched flipped the switch a little bit, where we're trying to find the cheapest foods possible. And really what you put into your body is what you're going to get out of it. So if you have high quality foods, high quality nutrients going in, you're going to get a high performance body that's way, way better and healthier overall. Let me mute you for a second. Yeah, she's not contagious, I promise. So that's what we work to help our patients through. So a couple more things that we wanted to talk and go over for you are just a couple like key things you need to know when you're working on starting a ketogenic diet. So the first thing would be the specific like supplements and testing that you want to look into when you're doing this. There's a lot of deficiencies that a lot of people have. So one of the things that we do whenever we're coaching our patients, or what?
I'm going to grab some water.
Okay, yeah, no, you're fine. A lot of the things that we do whenever we're coaching patients is we work on actually doing some testing She's coughing. We work on doing some testing before we actually do the ketogenic resource. So one of the things that we look for is we look to do specific metabolic testing. For a lot of our patients who come into our office, we don't really know what supplements to give them. They say, oh, well, I think I should be taking vitamin B or I should be taking vitamin D. We like to do a test initially to see, okay, where are you actually deficient in your supplements? Like where's your body needing nutrients? Where's it missing things? So we love to do what's called a metabolic test. It gives us a baseline for your body. It tells us if you have any toxicity, any issues going on. Really helps to hone in on your specific deficiencies. So, we have a program that we do that's called a Metabolic Recovery program. It's not just about teaching you how to do a ketogenic diet or a core diet or a modified version of that diet. It's really based on helping you understand, where are my deficiencies? How do I get those? And how do I truly get my body healthy? So do I need to detoxify before I even start a ketogenic diet? A lot of those little, stop gaps where people have those pitfalls, that's what we work on uncovering with that. Some of the most important supplements we end up finding as far as deficiencies are concerned are this. I'd say one of the biggest ones is a carnitine deficiency. And I'll talk about for a minute. Carnitine is really important when it comes to processing or burning fat. Carnitine is basically a shuttle that pushes fat into your cells. So, if you're going to burn fat for fuel, carnitine is the thing that actually pushes it inside of your cells. So for a lot of people, whenever they start a ketogenic diet, they're working on getting their body into that ketogenic state. And they're like, man, we're testing, which we'll talk about in a minute. I'm testing, I'm not seeing ketone bodies yet. I'm not seeing that my body's in a full state of ketosis. A lot of times we see that people have a carnitine deficiency. Whether we're doing the metabolic test or not, if you're in that phase and you're like, man, I'm doing everything right and I can't get there, that's a huge stopgap that you can just add in carnitine, and that'll really help push your body over the edge and get you into that state of ketosis. Another big one, I think, and I'm sure you have some of these too, but is electrolytes and balancing those. Whenever you start a ketogenic diet, you're going to lose 5-6 pounds of water weight in the first few days of taking this thing. And the reason for that is carbohydrates literally lead to, your body holding on to more water. So whenever you stop eating all of those carbohydrates, everyone gets encouraged. They think we're a miracle. It's like, oh, I lost like 5 pounds, and it's water weight. But the reality is that along with that water that's flushing out of your body goes a lot of the electrolytes, the sodium, the potassium, the magnesium. And so making sure that you're eating high potassium foods like avocados, for example, which have 2.5 times the potassium of bananas,
mushrooms, spinach.
Yeah, mushroom, spinach, high magnesium foods like cacao, like a high cocoa content chocolate bar. We're talking like 88% plus. If you're doing a ketogenic diet, those are going to give you great amounts of magnesium. Nuts, seeds as well from magnesium, sodium from salt.
Yeah. Adding like a pinch of pink Himalayan sea salt to your water would do wonders.
Yeah, especially if you're having a headache or you're feeling a little bit dehydrated, you want to make sure that you're keeping those electrolyte balances up, because your body's kind of not used to running on low carbohydrates. You think about, our bodies, historically we were made to go periods of time without food, without certain fuel sources as well. So our body was built to know how to fast. But if you haven't done it for a while, if you haven't gone without carbohydrates for a long period of time, your body's going to be angry. It kind of yells at people. And I think when you don't know that, or if you don't have a coach or, a physician, a doctor who's taking you through that, a lot of times people hit that wall at day 3 or day 4 in their body.
And they just quit. There's like, this doesn't work.
This isn't safe. This doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? Like, I've never eaten and had a massive headache and had all these problems going on, and realizing that, like, if your health is here, and you want to get your health to here, sometimes you have to go over, a really big, hump of resistance to get to that point, or else everyone would have, big biceps and 6-pack abs. It's not always easy in the beginning, and your body does get angry sometimes when it's changing. It's going from literally relying on sugar, easy burning fuel, to having to, go into its fat reserves, literally revascularize your adipose tissue, break that down, start turning it back into fuel like ketone bodies that your body can use. It doesn't like that in the beginning. We're asking our body to adapt back to a state that it should be, though. Yeah. And that's what I really believe, is that anyone and everyone, with very few exceptions, there's some blood typing issues. There's some rare genetic phenotypes that people don't do well on ketogenic diet, but the vast majority of people, I think, at some point in their lives should work on doing this, because it absolutely helps your body burn fat for fuel, kill off deleterious cells, increase brain function, increase brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which helps cognitive function. So many good things with that. So I got off track there a little bit, but to go back to supplements and testing, we talked about the two big ones, carnitine electrolytes. Are there any of the big ones you wanted to add in there?
Omega-3s.
Omega-3 fatty
That's
acids.
huge. That's
Absolutely.
huge.
So even on top of having healthy fats in, because a lot of us still don't get enough omega-3s, even if we're eating the good omega fats, taking a good fish oil supplement that gives you EPA and DHA for your omega-3 sources is huge. A little caveat with that is be careful when you're buying omega-3 supplements. If you're buying ones that have a ton of ALA, which is called alpha lipoic acid, that's a vegetarian form of omega-3s, only about 4 to 8% of that gets converted to the really good fats inside of your body. So be careful on that. If you're buying cheap supplements, you may not be getting what you're paying for, or you may be getting exactly what you're paying for, unfortunately. Some of the other testing. So we talked about the metabolic test that we do with a lot of our patients whenever we start with this. If you're a patient or listening to this and you want to get started, you can set up a consultation in our office and we will basically walk through it with you and kind of see what testing you need to start. The other type of testing that's really important when you're doing a ketogenic diet, though, is the actually testing the ketone levels. Do you want to go into how you do that?
Yes. So, I mean, there are 3 different ways. The most cost-effective way that I usually recommend my patients do is just purchasing the urine ketone strips. When your body enters into a state of ketosis, it will excrete any ketone bodies that aren't used. And a lot of times these urine strips will pick it up. So when you're just beginning the keto diet, it's great. Sometimes if you've been doing this for a long time and your body is becoming very efficient at using those ketone bodies, the urine strips aren't as good at picking up those ketone levels. So this is where I recommend getting a blood meter test. The one I recommend, it's called Keto Mojo, and it's the one I use in the office.
Okay, awesome.
And then there's also breathalyzers. So you could test the acetone levels in your breath as well to see whether or not you're in a state of ketosis.
So for most people, for starters, if you're first starting out, you're going to be safe with the strips.
Absolutely.
Which, I mean, we all use in the beginning. They're like $10.
You can pick them up at like any drugstore for like $8. Yeah.
It's the only thing you should be buying from a drugstore. Is that specifically. And so one of the things that we do, so whether you're doing this on your own, whether you're doing it with us, it's really important to know those levels. A lot of people have come in and they've kind of self-admittedly said, oh, I tried it and it didn't work. And one of the first questions that, we'll ask is, well, what were your ketone levels? And they would say, well, I didn't test it, but I know I was doing it. I know I was doing it right. And that's the problem is if we, are testing you, we'll know in 3 or 4 days, are you doing this right? Do we need to modify your protocols? Were we too lenient on the carbohydrates? Is there some other, issue or barrier going on there? Is there something going on with your metabolism that we have to work on figuring out to make sure that you actually get into that state? So it's really, really important to test and make sure that you know those levels. On the other test, on the metabolic test, if we're actually working with correcting your nutrient deficiencies and working through, detoxifying your body, as we go through this protocol, there's going to get to a point 3-4 months in, we're going to retest those. A lot of people, have nutrient deficiencies. They come in and say, oh, my doc says I'm always low on vitamin B. My doctor always says that, my D levels are off, or my vitamin C levels are low, or, I've got a lot of stress. So I'm holding excess, body fat. So I'm taking metformin, I'm taking insulin or what have you. One of the things we see as we start going through this metabolic recovery program is we start seeing people change. Your nutrient needs changed. Your nutrient needs change. You might have problems that you've had for years and they completely go away. I've had a patient come in who said, I get a B vitamin injection every 3 months because my body just doesn't process B. I can't absorb it. I can't keep it in my body. We go through this whole metabolic recovery program. We find out that every step of their basic mitochondrial process, basically how you take a piece of glucose and you turn it into energy, which is called ATP. There's like an 8-step process inside of your body biochemically that takes it there. The long story short is B vitamins are required for almost all of those. And her body was so bad at producing ATP that she was just urinating out all of the B vitamins. So, she was paying like $1,000 every 3 months for these injections and literally just, no offense, just, building expensive urine because she wasn't absorbing those properly. As we worked on boosting her metabolism, fixing these underlying metabolic deficiencies, well, now our body actually started absorbing the nutrients that she was, putting in her body. So what we expect for a lot of times is not that, you're deficient, therefore you need it for the rest of your life. We may find that, man, you only need 1 supplement. You only need 2 at this point in your life. It helps people save money actually long-term because, I know a lot of people who take 10 supplements a day and they don't really know if that's what they need. They just think that they did, or they heard an infomercial that says, oh, I got to take this thing or that thing or the other thing. Not saying that you shouldn't just take like a multi or like a, good clean fish oil, but there's a lot of deficiencies that we can work on kind of pulling out with this program to really help people understand where they need to target, spend their resources, spend their time, and put their efforts.
What it does is it just allows us to be very customized with the plan that we present our patients with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I thought it'd be good before we talk about some like of our favorite foods and things like that to just kind of walk through like what the first few weeks on a ketogenic diet looks like for people, what it feels like for people who haven't done it before, who are nervous about starting it. You want to start with that? Would that be good for you?
Well, I think it starts with even before day one. It's the planning that goes into it. It's clearing your pantry. It's
Yeah.
asking or setting up a support system or having accountability around you. So whether it's your spouse or making your family aware of your plan to follow the ketogenic diet. And then it's creating that grocery list. It's creating that meal plan. There's so much that goes into the prep work before you start. So
Yeah. Yeah. Getting those accountability. Make sure you tell your kids what you're doing and help them hold you accountable. Exactly. Exactly. So let's say after that. So we've taken the time, and one of the things I always tell people as a caveat there is when a lot of people come in, they a lot of times will tell me like, well, I have this event in a month. I have a wedding in a month. I can't start this change now. Like there's always these little excuses that tend to come up inside of our mind. And one of the things is, I completely agree. You do need to get prepared. This is not something you can just like haphazardly walk into, but let's be honest that no one's life is going to be 100% perfect laid out. We know it. We know that a lot of, parents have kids, and well, my kids may not do it with me. There's still snacks in the house. Like if I see the snacks, I'm going to eat them all. So I got to clear out all their stuff. I think that it's do app preparation, but understand that life is not going to like stop occurring in order for you to be able to do this. I think a lot of people try to wait to make health changes until like, the sun and the moon and Saturn all align at the same time. And a lot of times it doesn't happen for us. We kind of have to force, our priorities into these directions and not just try to wait for it. So plan effectively, absolutely, but know that there's going to be one or two things you may not be able to control during this. And
it's okay.
It's okay. I mean, okay. You can still go to the wedding. You can still go to your kid's birthday, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like you can, once you start learning how to sufficiently get through this, you're going to know how to eat before you go to things, or know what foods you can have at certain places, know how to eat a little bit here and there. So you don't look like the weird person who's just sitting in the back, eating the celery. So I think that's important. So let's talk about it. So they've prepped, they've planned, they're going to start with it. What does the first week look like and also feel like for someone who's going through this?
So like I mentioned earlier, tracking's huge. So in the first few days, make sure that you're tracking your macros, because there are hidden carbs everywhere. They quickly add up. And when I work with patients, I usually recommend around 20 to 30 net carbs. So that adds up quickly. So make sure you're tracking your macros, and also test your ketones. It's nice to know when you enter into ketosis. So let's say you're 3, 5, 6 days in, you're not in ketosis. You probably have to modify your plan somewhat so that you can get your body into ketosis. But ideally, with the patients that I've worked with in the past, usually by day 3, 4, or 5, that's when the transition happens. That's when you transition into ketosis. A lot of times patients experience the keto flu.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what does that feel like when you transition? Everyone's like, I transition, like I ascend.
Just like the name.
Kind of.
It feels like you're coming down with the flu. So you feel weak, you feel lightheaded. Some patients talk about feeling like they experience the chills.
Yeah.
But that's
irritable.
Irritable, yes.
The first time we did ketogenic diet, we didn't know, no one told us this. So I was finishing chiropractic school, and she was an office manager in a clinic, and we were like, we're going to try this, like, I don't know, 10 years ago. And just the day 3, we just started yelling at each other, like out of nowhere. And it was like,
well, we didn't do the research. We didn't know what we were doing. We're like, let's
why are you so angry? I'm not angry. You're angry. You started it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you're irritable, your body's running out of stored sugar. I mean, it's literally starting a whole new metabolic process that you may not have put your body into for weeks, months, years, long time.
Yeah.
So days typically 2 to 4 is where you get the flu. Suggestions when people are in that, what's the most important thing to focus on?
Stay very well hydrated. Make sure that you keep your electrolytes balanced. So we talked about like potassium, magnesium, and sodium earlier. So that's gonna do wonders for you. Get rest.
Yeah.
I always plan it out so that day 2 to day 4, it's an easier day because you're gonna want to rest on those days.
Yep, totally agree. So after you've made the transition,
It's euphoric.
no, I mean, but talk about that for a second, because I mean, a lot of people feel that pain. They're like, man, this is miserable. I never want to do this. But really, once you start getting into it, how would you describe like?
Just you experience increased energy, more mental clarity. A lot of patients we see in the office, they deal with aches and pains, and they experience just like inflammation.
Yeah.
So their joints, their pains, they start going away. Um, a lot of patients have reported like clearer skin. It's just the side effects or the benefits of the ketogenic plan. I mean, it's a long list.
Yeah. The way that I think about it is, if you are eating like a high carbohydrate diet, it's like taking a bunch of dry leaves and throwing them on a fire. The fire is like the fuel in your body. So you get this flash in the pan, this big amount of heat, and then all of a sudden it simmers off. When you're eating carbohydrates all day, that's how you feel. You get, I go eat, a big carbohydrate meal. If it's too big, I fall asleep. but if it's just the right amount, I get energy. I feel alive. And then all of a sudden, by the time I'm ready for another meal, I'm hangry. The difference with fats is they're slow burning. I mean, fats provide a lot more energy per what's called a kilocalorie. They provide a lot more energy per size. So it's like putting a big oak log on a fire. It's going to smolder. It's going to give you sustainable energy throughout the day. That cognitive increase that you talked about is great as well.
That's not to mention the drastic weight loss. Like we see patients lose a bulk of the weight that first week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then for me on the other side, so I did the ketogenic diet about 2 years ago. We went through a challenge and we did it as a team. That was my first time actually accomplishing and completing it. And the biggest struggle for me was I didn't weigh more than I necessarily wanted to, but my body fat percentage reduced a lot. So I went from, being in decently good shape to being like, wow, this is what being really, like ripped feels like, because, without, again, the excess carbohydrates, even though I was in pretty good shape, I was in incredible shape by the end of that. And my strength stayed there. I didn't have the muscle wasting as well. One of the really cool things about a high fat diet is your body doesn't necessarily waste muscle. The excess fat in your body gives you what's called a positive nitrogen balance. So your body doesn't waste muscle. It's very muscle sparing. So even though, you think your body might be getting smaller, like my biceps are getting smaller, really what your body's just doing is metabolizing and burning fat. As long as you're keeping those healthy amounts of fats in, your body's going to really keep its muscle up. And a lot of people, I think, make that mistake is they say, well, I need more protein because I'm not getting enough carbohydrates. So like, what are my muscles going to fill on? And no, they actually, they work on fat. I mean, your body doesn't need a lot of protein to sustain itself and turn itself over. I know a lot of people who say, oh, I eat 500 grams of protein a day. And it's like, no, if you have a healthy amount of fat in your body's very good at recycling protein. You don't need to eat a ton of protein. So just from a guy perspective, or someone, in the beginning, I didn't need to change my body habits as much. It was still really, really effective. Yeah, we see massive amounts of weight loss, 50, 60 pounds very, very quickly, which is great. And I love seeing the people who have come in, who have like struggled on it before, who've kind of given up. And then when we really just show them the ropes on it, it's like, wow, this is how it's supposed to be. This is how it should be done. Cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and it's so much fun seeing patients feel empowered, because I don't know how many times I've sat down with a patient a week in and they're ready to give up because it's hard. But with that support, with that accountability, they're committed, they're determined, and then they see results in the like upcoming following weeks. And it's just it's fun seeing the hope and seeing these patients come alive.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. All right. So we're almost done and wrapping up. I wanted to go over our favorite keto foods just really quickly and then close. And then if you guys have any questions, put them in the comments below, or you can send us an email to our office. You can go to riversidefamilychiro.com, ask any questions on there. Obviously on Facebook, if you have any questions, you can send us a direct message. We offer complimentary consultation. So if you're listening in and saying, man, this is me, I want help with this, if you send us a message, we'll set you up for a time, whether you want help working on your spine or whether you want help working on your diet, whether you want help with, getting your body just totally transformed. We want to be able to help you with that. So send us a message, give us a call, find us online, however you can. And we want to make sure that we support you guys on the back end of this so that we take all this information and turn it into action for you. So without further ado, favorite ketogenic foods. I'll go first only because I said it first. So I'll say mine and you can say yours. My favorite is my like little porridge that I make with the grass-fed full fat yogurt. And so I try to like maximize nutrients as much as possible. My favorite healthy fats are the seeds, the hemp seeds, the chia seeds. They're packed with omega-3s. So basically I take a bowl of, like maybe a cup of grass-fed plain whole full fat yogurt. I do a small handful of like frozen blueberries to give it some good flavor, not a lot of carbohydrates, tons of nutrients, hemp seeds, chia seeds, some of our bone broth, the Max Living, the bone broth chocolate, protein powder.
And our kids, they love
I know, like they asked for it this morning. And I do a big soup of Max greens. And literally I stir that up. I might add in like some raw cacao nibs or something like that to give it some flavor. And that's like my go-to. Like it's not a breakfast because I don't usually eat breakfast, but it's like a brunch to lunch for me. Like that's one of my go-tos, like before, after a workout. Absolute favorite keto food. It's perfectly macronutrient ranged and delicious. Your turn.
So I'm a mom. So my favorite thing has to be my Bulletproof coffee that I start my day with every morning. So a cup of black organic coffee with some Kerrygold butter and sweetened with stevia. It's my go-to. If we're going to talk about other beverages, we love Zevia. That's the only like beverage that we have inside our house, probably other than water, that we allow the kids to drink.
We're Ohio. You can call it pop. I mean, it's a pop though. Yes. It's a carbonated beverage. It's non-alcoholic. It's just regular. Yeah. Yep. Delicious. My favorite dessert is Legendary Foods has a great ketogenic like peanut butter, almond butter, pecan butter. They have these amazing like ketogenic like peanut butters almost. And my favorite thing is kind of a play on the first thing. I do a big scoop of that into a bowl with a little bit of blueberries or other like frozen fruits or some strawberries in it. I'll do a little bit of heavy cream, like organic grass-fed heavy cream, and always hemp seeds. Because I think with every meal I'm looking at how do I get more fat in there. And honestly, it's not very sweet, but like when you're on a ketogenic diet, like your taste buds for sweet are like so elevated. Like if you were to eat something that's like, I mean, I remember I like cheated once, like I've been doing ketogenic for like a month and a half and I ate a whole pizza and I threw up. Like it was just too much carbohydrates for me. So like a little bit of sweet will go a long way. Once your taste buds reacclimate to it, you're like, wow, you look at me right now if you're not in it, but then when you have it, you're going to go, wow, that's really good.
Yeah. And I know our kids, they love the Siete brand. They're very keto friendly. I make them quesadillas with those all the time. The Siete chips. They're also great. Epic, like beef jerkies we have in the house at all times.
The egg wraps for like tacos. They're like egg wrap tortillas are absolutely phenomenal. I love making almond Triscuits. So it's like just almond flour and a couple ingredients. You can bake it for 10 minutes, take a pizza wheel and cut it up. And you have like these awesome, like almond crackers that are non-carbohydrate. So like I miss my crunch sometimes and those are fantastic too.
And since it's summertime, I don't want to leave out ice cream. We either make our own ice cream or you can go to Whole Foods. And I've discovered this brand Mammoth. They have this phenomenal vanilla ice cream custard and it just gets me through these summer days.
Yeah, need it. And then if we make it at home, really simple, 3 ingredients, maybe 4, frozen strawberries, avocados, a little bit of cream and like a couple drops of stevia. Makes an absolutely awesome strawberry, strawberry cream gelato. It's really, really good. So even with young kids, you can get through this. We have a 2 and a 4-year-old. So it can absolutely happen to you. So cool. That's all for us. If you have any questions, please send us a message, share this with your friends. We want this to get around as much as possible. We do these videos for you guys to help encourage you to keep making healthy changes in your life and to really become the best version of yourself. Any final words of encouragement?
Just if you guys need any resources, message us. We provide a lot of resources in the office, and just know that you can do it. You got this.
Yep. I'd say the same thing. Don't wait until you have the perfect environment. Just get started, just get going, and you'll see that things will come in place around you, and have a good team around you.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
All right.
Thanks you guys very much. Take care.
Yes,
Bye.
love you.